Are you in a rut? Do you yearn for something new in your life? Kids, it's almost the middle of summer. How many times have you said that you're bored? How about you, mother or retiree? Or you, state employee? Is your life the same old, same old? Is your life like this? You're on a hamster wheel, extending a lot of effort, but just going in circles? Do you feel like your life is like that? Or maybe you're on a treadmill. Thank you. You are on your way to work, on your way to whatever, and you think you're making progress, but you know, being on the treadmill, you don't get anywhere. You expend a lot of effort, don't you? But you just don't get anywhere. I was thinking about showing a clip of the opening for the Jetsons with George walking Astro on that treadmill. And, you know, you can put in a lot of mileage and get nowhere. That's the whole point. Sometimes we do a lot of things, and when we look back, we say, where have I gotten? I expended all this energy and I haven't gotten anywhere. Was it really worth it? Well, by now you should know that we have begun studying the book of Ecclesiastes. And as we are studying this book together, we've been using this as a theme. When life comes up empty. Today's sermon is entitled, Same Old, Same Old, taken from Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. This Solomonic preacher / teacher calls us to assemble, because that's what Ecclesiastes means, one who calls a gathering, one who calls people to assemble for some teaching, for some debate, for some discussion. And so this Solomonic preacher from this text is calling us to assemble, to listen to his words of wisdom about life. So turn with me to Ecclesiastes chapter 1. As we look at the first 11 verses, we will consider 3 observations that this preacher / teacher makes about life. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? One generation passes away and another generation comes. But the earth abides forever. The sun also rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. The wind whirls about continually and comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which it may be said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. Same old, same old. The first observation I believe that this preacher / teacher makes is that there is no gain in labor. There is no gain in labor. We looked last week in the beginning of this series at verses 1 and 2. You know that the cry is vanity of vanities, all is vanity, is saying life is meaningless. There's nothing to life, but we had to go to the end of the book to find out that life is meaningless apart from God. So he's beginning his argument with that, and then he launches in verse 3 with, what profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? Now, that phrase, under the sun, means what happens in this life, on this plane. It's our human viewpoint. You know, we look at life from our point of view, don't we? Amen. But there's a greater point of view. That's the heaven view. As God looks down on us, he sees things quite differently than we do, for he sees the whole picture. But from a human perspective, this wise man is saying, what profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils while on this earth? He is saying that there is nothing to be gained. You spend all your life working. How many people have done that? And they come to the point of retirement. They put all their efforts into their jobs, into their careers. They retire, and they don't have much. And what little they do have, somebody's trying to take from them. It just hurts me when I hear reports of people ripping off old elderly people with all kinds of scams, trying to get their money, whether it's repairing their house or, whatever it might be. All these scams on the elderly, and all they have to live on is their retirement income. And those of you who are retired, you know that it's hard to live on a retirement income, especially with the state of our economy, with everything going up and up and up in prices, and your retirement income, maybe, sometimes you get a cost of living adjustment. Maybe you don't. You wind up having to live more with less. And maybe you take some time to think, well, why did I give my heart and soul to that job? At this point in my life, I don't have anything. The job is not taking care of me. I have to try to take care of me. And you begin to question, there's no benefit. There's no advantage. There's no gain in working. Later on in the book, this teacher will talk about how you can work and labor and you don't really get a chance to enjoy the things that you did. You die, and people that come behind you, they begin to enjoy what you did, and you don't know if it's worth it, if it's a good thing, if they will appreciate all the effort that you put into it. And that can be kind of frustrating, can't it? Amen. To think that you are doing the best that you can, and people are not going to appreciate it. So the writer of Ecclesiastes says, one generation passes away and another generation comes. What he's saying is, people come and people go. People die, don't they? But here's the interesting thing he is saying. Your labor dies with you. Somebody may pat you on the back for a job well done, but when you are put in that box and lowered in the ground, basically your labor goes with you. Your labor is no more. But the earth goes on. You may die, but the earth goes on. And then he talks about the sun rising and setting. and that is the 24-hour cycle. You know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. You can set your clock by that, can't you? Because it happens the same way day after day after day. Night follows day, day follows night. The sun rises, the sun sets. It's the cycle of the day. Then he speaks about the wind. The wind goes toward the south and turns around to the north. Now, it's interesting that he chooses that. I think he's making a play here because, you know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So he talks about the wind in the south and turning around going north. But you and I know, and he says it himself, you know, the wind whirls. The wind goes where it wants to go. You can't control the wind. It blows where it wills. And that's why we have weather patterns. And so perhaps this preacher-teacher is talking about the pattern of weather being controlled by the way that the wind blows. You know, there's always a concern if you watch the Weather Channel or just your local news and they get to the weather, one thing that they always check is the jet stream, right? The jet stream is a wind pattern. It is a constant pattern of wind. And whether it dips or it goes up really shapes what happens as far as weather, whether it will be cool or warm. The writer of Ecclesiastes is saying that the wind blows where it wants. Man can observe what the wind does, but man cannot control what the wind does or where the wind will go. So people come and people go, but the earth goes on. The sun continues to rise and set. The wind continues to blow. It affects our weather patterns. Then he talks about the water cycle. Notice what he says. Verse 7, all the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. So you have bodies of water, small bodies of water running into the sea, running into the oceans. Have you ever thought about the fact that the ocean is never full? With all the torrential rain and all that, you know, a river can overflow its banks, but I'm so thankful that the ocean doesn't overflow itself. Now, there are times when you have the tsunamis that's caused by a shift under the earth that causes the waves to form, but there's no amount of water that you can put into the oceans and the seas that will cause it to flood the earth, except for when God did it. But what is described here is they return again. To the place from which the rivers come, they return again. That's the water cycle. Because scientists have come to understand that the waters from the oceans and the seas evaporate. And as it evaporates, it ascends up into the sky. When it gets up into the cold, it will come down as rain, snow, and ice. When you have ice on the mountaintops, they form rivers eventually that come down, and those rivers and streams flow back into the seas and the ocean. So you have the water cycle. He's describing the fact that life on earth is cyclical. That points to design, not accident. God has done this. He has created the cycle of life, where you go from infancy back to infancy. When you are old, you're not able to take care of yourself. You get to a point where you have to be dependent upon other people. So you've heard that expression, oh, that person's back in their second childhood. It is a cycle of life. But remember this. The preacher/teacher is speaking from a human viewpoint. The way that we see things is people come and people go, people die. More people come and they die, and more people come and they die. But The earth keeps going on. The sun rises, the sun sets, the winds blow, and the water cycle continues. Our intrusion upon this earth does not interrupt any of that. You know, we're here for a short time, whether it's 2 days or 100 years. We don't really impact what happens as far as these cycles that God has put into place. So, we look at this, and the writer of Ecclesiastes is saying, you know, there's no gain in labor, because the bottom line is, I don't have anything to show for it. When I die, I can't take it with me. There are a lot of people that want to take what they have with them. That's why they have the pyramids. You know what the pyramids was about? It was so that the Pharaoh could take all his wealth, and some of his, you know, he had his people, the closest people, they had to die when he was dying. Can you imagine that? Hey, Pharaoh, you about to kick the bucket. I'm not ready to go. He says, I'm sorry, you're going to be embalmed, and you're going to be entombed with me because you're my servant. When I reach the other world, you're going to be there with me. Say, what? See, they believed in the afterlife, but they didn't have the biblical understanding of what that was all about. And there have been people who try to take stuff with them. They want to be buried in their Cadillac. Well, you ain't going to be doing any driving in the grave. People have tried to take things with them when they die. But the fact is, your labor ends when you die. There's nothing for you to do. You can't take it with you. Which brings me to the second observation that this preacher/teacher makes about life. Verse 8, he says that everything takes effort. Everything takes effort. Look at verse 8. All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What he's saying is, yeah, life is full of labor. It takes toil, hard work, great effort. There really is no easy road. Of course, there are exceptions, like those who are born into privilege, never worked a day in their life, and they have daddy's inheritance, and so they run around like spoiled brats because they've never had to work. Same thing could be true of those who die young before they really had a chance to get into the workforce. But for the most part, we all know that there's no easy road. Yet we try to find them, don't we? We spend a lot of effort looking for an easy road. Now, even thieves and crooks have to work hard, even if it's just constantly looking over their shoulder. There's no easy road. You may think, oh, they just knock off people, they break into somebody's house, but it takes a lot of work to commit a crime, unless you're one of those that caught on camera with those stupid thieves. You ever see those commercials, those shows, where somebody's just plain dumb? But apart from that, it takes a lot of planning and scheming to try to avoid work. I don't want to tell anybody, but we had a young man years ago here at this church. Came for a men's breakfast. And after the breakfast, we were supposed to clean up the church, both inside and out. And this young man didn't want to work. He spent more effort hiding and ducking and running away from work, where if he just worked, it would have been less effort. You know, sometimes we think that we can avoid work, but it's hard to avoid work. It takes work to avoid work. But after a while, with all the effort and labor and toil you put in, you get tired of it. Hard work doesn't bring satisfaction, according to this preacher/teacher. Why is that? Because your hard work doesn't last. That's one thing about me. I am a pack rat, I'll admit it. It's one of my vices. But it takes a lot of work to clean up your area. You may spend half a day cleaning up, and you're so tired after you finish cleaning up that you start throwing stuff around again because you're just exhausted. You know, all the work that you did to clean up gets undone in a few seconds. And then you begin to question, well, why did I go through all that? It's going to wind up the same way anyhow. So some of the things that we do, it just doesn't last. Or maybe you are the neatnik in your family, and you throw yourself into the effort to keep the house clean or keep the room clean or keep the car clean, whatever it is, and somebody else comes along and starts messing up. It's like that commercial of the mother. She just finished mopping the floor with Spick and Span or Mr. Clean or whatever it is, and she's smiling, and here comes the kids. They've been playing out in the dirt, and they track mud, and the pet comes in tracking mud. After all the effort that she put into cleaning the kitchen floor, it is undone by somebody else. And so do you ever feel like that? You know, I don't get any satisfaction from my work because it doesn't last. Or maybe you don't get satisfaction from what you do because others don't recognize your effort. You do all this, you work hard, you make the sacrifices, and people can't even say thank you. Or they don't even acknowledge that you've done anything. So you get no satisfaction out of working. You begin to say, hey, I might as well be like everybody else. I do all this work. Nobody notices anyway. I try to make the house look nice. I put all these decorations up. They don't even say anything. You feel, hey, there's no satisfaction from this that I've done. Or people take you for granted. Or if you are a perfectionist, you don't get satisfaction because it's never quite perfect. You work hard, you try to get it together, and everybody says, oh, it's a great job, great job. You say, no, it's still not right. And you start fiddling with it, and you start fiddling with it some more, and you just never get it complete. And so it's left unfinished. And you say, hey, why did I bother with this project? I knew I wasn't going to be able to complete it anyway to my satisfaction, to my standards. Well, the point is, everything takes effort. But the third observation that the preacher/teacher makes is that there's nothing new. There is nothing new. Verse 9, that which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. What has been will be. Do you realize that the past shows up in the future? And you say, I don't believe that. Well, just look at clothing styles. Some of the styles in the 60s and the 70s, they make their return today. Right? It's amazing about, just take men's ties. They go from wide to kind of in between to skinny to wide. It just keeps going. That which was in the past now becomes popular. You ever notice how you're a parent now, you're an adult, and your children want to raid your wardrobe because what you used to wear is in style now? What is that all about? It's the past showing up in the future. If that doesn't convince you, just look at the movie remakes. They keep making movies from the past because they don't have any new ideas, because there's nothing new under the sun. Or let's get personal. Look at our past mistakes and how they kind of predict our future tendencies. Now, if you have lost your temper in the past, apart from God's intervention, you'll probably lose your temper in the future. Then there's the baby boomer music. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, all the music that we love, have you realized how it's come back? You see it on just about every commercial now. They're using the music of the baby boomers. Why? Because they want us to remember then. And they think they can get us to buy things by using music from the past. See, the past comes into the present and into the future. My first car was a 1968 Dodge Charger. That was a bad car. And it was fast. Believe me, it was fast. And I loved that car. But I blew the engine in it. I had to get rid of it. And by 1972, 73, somewhere around there, or maybe it was later, they stopped making Dodge Chargers. And it bothered me because that when you have your first anything, it holds a special place in your heart. Well, 3 years ago, they came back with the Dodge Charger. And I wanted one, but I couldn't afford it. But the thing is, it was something from the past that showed up in then was the future. Because there's nothing new under the sun. We have a short range of ideas. And we replay them. We use them again and again and again and again. We seem to lack imagination. What has been done will be done. The rich still take advantage of the poor. You realize that they've always done that? Rich people have always taken advantage of the poor. The way the rich get rich is by living off the poor. That was true in Bible days. It's true today. What has been done will be done. Do you think that get rich quick schemes are new? There have always been somebody would try to come up with some get rich quick idea. You think that people trying to get over is new? People have always tried to get over. So from a human viewpoint, nothing is new. You may say, oh, Pastor, they have all these new modern gadgets. Well, we think that those gadgets are new, like labor-saving devices, communication devices, entertainment. The concept is still old. Whatever it is, it's a labor-saving device. That's not new. It's a communication device. It may be a cell phone. It may be a holograph. It doesn't matter. The concept is still old. It's communication. And we've always tried to find different ways to entertain ourselves. Here's the point. The materials were always there. You may think that you've done something new, but the materials were always there. You didn't bring something out of the air and create something new. There is nothing new under the sun. So the preacher teacher says, what can be said that this is new? Here's something you may want to write down. I didn't put it on a PowerPoint. A discovery is seeing something that was already there. A discovery, when you discover something, it was already there. So a discovery is seeing something that was already there. So you can't call that new. You just happen to stumble upon it. And how many times have we been sucked into new and improved? New and improved cereal. All they do maybe is take out some of the sugar or add marshmallows or whatever. It's the same cereal, but we buy it because it's new and improved. Or detergent or whatever it is. They maybe add a little additive. Or, shame on these marketers. What's new and improved is you pay more for less. I went to the store the other day to to get a breakfast sandwich. And they had orange juice, Tropicana and Sunkist, orange juice. Same price. But one was 15.2 ounces, and the other was 16 ounces. The same juice, different packaging. One shrank their package. I'll tell you what it was, Tropicana. Tropicana used to be 16 ounces. But they shrank the bottle and kept the price the same. That's the new and improved. We get sucked into this concept of new and improved with slight changes. And worse yet, planned obsolescence. You know what planned obsolescence is? Things are built to break down after a certain amount of time so that you go out and buy another one. That's planned obsolescence. You don't believe me? You check the warranty on the things that you buy. The extended warranty is probably telling you how long they expect that thing to exist. You buy a computer today, it's out of date 3 years later. Well, they could have built the capacity that they're going to increase within those 3 years. They could have done it right at the beginning. But no, they want you to upgrade. We love to upgrade, don't we? 2G isn't good enough, so they come out with 3G. And after you've had your phone for a while, they come out with 4G. You know, it won't be long before there's 5, 6, 10G. And they're going to keep stringing you along. That's why you got to buy a new phone every 2 years. That new washing machine or refrigerator that you buy, there is planned obsolescence in that. They don't want it to last forever. They could build it that way. Do you think that here in the United States that we don't have minds that are smart enough to make things last longer than they do? They don't want to do that. They could design a car that would be great on gas, last far longer than what we have. You could have engines that they could build that would go more than 200, 300, 400,000 miles before you need a new engine. But they don't want to do that because they want you to have this new mentality. But when we begin to realize there's nothing new under the sun, it's the same old, same old. They keep running the same game on us. Marketing is for the purpose of making us want the new model. You've got to have the latest thing. Hey, I'm guilty. I'm a gadgets guy. But it's being sucked into this concept that newer is better. And it's not new. It's just changed slightly. The truth that we need to realize is that God is the only true creator. He is the only one that can make anything new. Maybe you don't believe that. But if you're a Christian, you need to look in the mirror. Are you today what you were before salvation? No. Because 2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us that if any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things are become new. When we get saved, we become new people. And so some of the things that we used to do, we don't want to do it anymore because we are new in Christ. We're told in Revelation chapter 21, in the beginning, that God is going to make a new heaven and a new earth. And in verse 5 of that same chapter, he says that he will make all things new. A new heaven, a new earth, a new Jerusalem, all things new. Only God can make all things new. He's the only one that makes new things. And that's why it's true that there is nothing new under the sun. The preacher/teacher finishes up with this the second half of verse 10 and then verse 11. It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. Things are cyclical, like fashions, ideas, methods. Some of the methods that you use today have been used years past. They just call it something different. You know, we got this new approach. You don't have any new approach. You know, we're going to go out into the community. Well, what do you think the early church did? Go back to the book of Acts. You think that you're coming up with some new methodology? No, you're not. You're just calling it something new or something different. But methods, ideas, fashions, those things are cyclical. You know, they come into vogue and then they go out of vogue. Somebody recycles something that has been done before. They bring it back. It's like being on a hamster wheel. Then you begin to ask yourself, haven't we done that before? You're calling it something different, but it looks eerily similar to what we used to do. And the problem is we are forgetful. We forget the past. George Santayana made this powerful statement in the book that he wrote, which is often misquoted. I had to go online to check out the correct quotation. This is what he said. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. You know, there's a lot of truth in that. When we forget where we came from, we wind up in trouble, don't we? When we forget what people have done in the past that were wrong, we wind up doing the same thing because we don't remember the past. The preacher teacher says that future generations will do the same thing. But there's a difference for Christians. Do you realize that believers are instructed to remember? We are to remember God's acts. We are to remember God's answers to our prayer. We're to remember the Lord's death and resurrection. That's why we observe communion, baptism. Why do we worship on Sunday? It's to remember that he rose from the grave on Sunday. We have holy days and feasts, Christmas, Resurrection Sunday, other holidays. Their purpose is to cause us to remember. We look to the past. It has impact for where we're going in the future. The point of this message is neither work nor toys will satisfy you. Work is soap bubbles. The toys that we get, soap bubbles. You put a lot of effort into those things, and they disappear because within the bubble is nothing. If you are tired of the same old, why not come to Jesus? He will give you new life by making you a new person. If you are a Christian, the rat race can take your eyes off of God. Your job or your education will not satisfy you. That's living life under the sun. But you're called to live life here with your eyes fixed on things above. And so I want you to turn to Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. I want you to meditate on these two verses the rest of this week. You can say, Pastor, yeah, right. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. I am challenging you to look at these two verses at least once a day for this week. It says, if then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. Set your minds on things above, not on things on this earth. Ask God this week for insight and application in your life of these two verses. And Koheleth, Ecclesiastes, the preacher/teacher says, assembly dismissed.